Hello and welcome to this interview today with Sigrid Cast. I'm a book writing and marketing specialist with a unique program for coaches and consultants who want to write a book that raises their profile, positions their expertise, and attracts new clients with ease. And today I'm interviewing Loretta Ferrucci. You are in South Africa. How exciting. Welcome, Loretta. I hope I said your last name correctly now.
Yes, absolutely did.
That's wonderful. Well, Loretta is a exciting health and wellness coach. And your background is, or you are a registered homeopath in South Africa, and you particularly focus on the mind-body connection and energy management. Now, that is something we need right now. A lot of people, particularly in the UK that I have spoken to, are losing all their motivation and energy with all the lockdowns and restrictions that they have. We here in Australia are not so bad. It's sort of a bit different over where you are, but your particular passion, Loretta, is around helping women to have great optimal health and high vitality. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I'm happy to help men have that as well, but it just seems that generally this attracts women more. So I tend to have more women clients.
And that is probably something that that seems to be, universal, that I think it is us females, we are much more interested to stay healthy, to become healthy, and the male take a bit of time, sometimes hang on their last string when they come to want to know more. So tell me, how do people find you? How do they come to you for your help?
Well, I used to have a brick and mortar practice, a homeopathic practice, and then sort of about 10 years ago, it morphed into, sort of started doing more counseling and more coaching. And I closed my practice at the end of 2019, and now I work exclusively online. So I have a Facebook profile. Obviously, I've got online profiles, and I have a private Facebook group, and that's really where my tribe collect and congregate. And that's mostly where I draw my business from.
Excellent. So anybody can join that group, Loretta, or is it for a select group only?
No. Anyone can join. You do need approval. So generally, I mean, I will say that I'm trying to avoid the people who are all trying to sell me something. So I do actually check out the profiles usually, but I'm happy for anybody who's interested to join.
And the group is called Vitality Matters, which is, I love that name. That's so, to the point, isn't it? Vitality Matters. So that's a really great way to be close to people who want and need what you offer. So in that, or since when have you done that? So you've done it quite a while that you've looked after the health and wellness of people.
Yes. So when I started, I qualified when I was. So let me start off. In South Africa, a homeopathic qualification is a master's degree. So it takes, it takes 2 years to do that master. So 6 years at university. So I don't know, I was 24 when I qualified. And that's when I opened my practice. It's the only job I ever had. I've never been to a job interview, and I've never had an employer. So I was in full-time homeopathic practice for most of my life, other than taking a little bit of time off to have a baby. And I live in a small town, so word of mouth is relatively easy. It's easy to be well known in a small town, especially when you've got an unusual surname. So my surname is unusual enough that it sort of sticks. And then it was a sort of just an organic movement, getting when social media became a thing, actually moving those people that are my patients and my clients onto social media. So I've only been working online exclusively since April of 2020, but I'm loving it actually.
And it wasn't due just due to the outer circumstances with the pandemic, though. It was you were already doing it to some extent.
Yes. I closed my practice at the end of 2019, so I'd already made that decision. It took me a while to make that decision, but I'd made that decision. And then I happened to, the building that I have my office in happens to belong to me and my husband, and we got a tenant who wanted the whole building, so I had to move out. So I packed everything, my dispensary, the whole. It was the impetus for me to truly end it off. And that was in April, because up until then I was still going into the office, right, and working online and seeing a few patients here and there. And so it was the week before the full lockdown was declared in South Africa. So the third week of March, I moved out of my practice, and the next week it was like pandemic, serious stories, and we had a very aggressive lockdown. Our first lockdown was extreme. You couldn't even go for a walk with your dog. You couldn't leave your house, actually.
Wow.
So yeah, it was serendipitous, actually.
So it was really the time, and it was good that you were kind of prepared, for a better way of saying that, to do that. A lot of people were caught unaware, especially in, you know, in the health and wellness fields like you are in, that were really worried with massage and, you know, acupuncture, for example. What you are helping people with is so easily transferable, really, when you think about it.
So, you know, I don't do medical type of consultations, and I can't give people medication, but we've got lots of other tools, and very often natural, you know, a supplementary medication is relatively easy to come by. So yeah, but I don't do the medicine side of it anymore.
No, you're focusing full on the mind body, that whole connection, which is a lot to do with what? Tell us, what has it got the most to do with?
I think that in personal development circles, or people who have an interest in spirituality or growth and expansion, the body's often seen as something you have to overcome or fix. You know, it's like that impediment to where you're going. But the truth is, your body is the only part of you that is constantly in the present. It's never in the past. It's never in the future. It's only right now. And it is feeding back to you what's happening in your subconscious. It's actually feeding back to you what messages your subconscious are getting the loudest, because your subconscious runs your autonomic nervous system. And your autonomic nervous system is that part of your nervous system that runs everything. Okay, so that runs your endocrine system. It controls how many digestive enzymes you produce. It controls whether you ovulate or not. It controls whether cells die or don't die at the right time. So your autonomic nervous system consists of your sympathetic nervous system, which most people know as your fight or flight, and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, digest, and restore. So those two legs of that very important nervous system is run by your subconscious mind. And whatever's happening there by your autonomic nervous system is going to show up in your body. So it can show up as being tired, or having migraines, or having polycystic ovaries. I mean, it can show up as a diagnosis, or it can show up as these sort of subclinical, subtle signs and symptoms. It's always an indicator of what's actually going on in your subconscious. And if we could just learn how to, so what I say is, the body speaks the language of your soul, as it were. I mean, I can't think of a better word, but it's a messenger. And if you can just learn how to translate the messages, then you can actually move yourself to more optimal health. Because what we tend to do is we tend to ignore and punish and try and push into, you know, so just in terms of what we look like, for example, you know, if I think that I need to wear a size whatever, I can punish and starve and exercise to death. That's not health and wellness. No one's ever punished themselves to wellness, quite frankly, or to joy. So I do believe that there's a different way. And if we don't see signs and symptoms as punishment or random, or if we can see the organization in that, and we can learn to decipher those signals, then we can not only get better in physically, but we can reconnect with ourselves. We get to know ourselves better, and we live much more aligned with who we really are. And that's when we head into joy and inspiration, you know? And no one feels amazing in their psyche, in their mental and emotional world, if their body is dragging them down. It's difficult to be happy when you're in pain.
So you've just said some amazing things here. My brain cells are going, you know, 110 a second here to keep up with you. So I can feel your passion. I think everybody can feel your passion, which is absolutely brilliant. So I get the connection. So you're saying that the subconscious is telling the body to show symptoms, or to show something's not in balance, right? And we can learn how to read those signals, and we can adjust it with our own strengths, power, tools, whatever we have in our own life. That is amazing. That means nobody has to be sick ever, really, or can heal themselves to some extent, I guess.
Well, I'd like to think of it as, you know what, you may get, so we live in a dualistic universe, right? Where everything occurs in pairs. So, happy and sad come together. Success and failure, you might be hugely successful at work and be more of a failure in terms of your health because you don't have time to look after your health, for example, okay?
Right.
So happy and sad, success, failure. And health and disease, it's like cell reproduction and cell death. They go together. So I think it's a bit like, it's like insurance, if you've got insurance and something goes wrong, it's easier for you to bounce back. So I'm not suggesting that we don't get sick. I mean, I had COVID at the beginning of the year. We were talking about this. I'm not suggesting that we don't get sick. It's not about not getting sick. It's about, if you get sick, do you know how to harness your innate healing power so that you can bounce back?
Right.
Or at the very worst, learn not the lesson, because that sounds like punishment, but find the meaning in your disease. If it's a more serious disease level, find the meaning in the disease, because the meaning in the disease will give you an idea of where it is that you can go to actually modify that as much as is possible.
Mm-hmm. So the meaning in the disease, is that something that we can then ourselves learn to identify what that is, or is that something that can really only be seen from the outside? Because often, I mean, I'm talking here from business, for example, and in particular around book writing, people are really finding it very hard to see their own doing or not doings, right?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think, Sigrid, it's a bit like, so, I wrote a book. I wrote it as a manual, and it was, I don't know, 10 years ago. Maybe as long as 10 years ago. And it was called Conscious Creating. So I know nothing about writing a book. I just wanted to write a manual so that if everyone came to my workshop and they could read this book, they could use it as a manual, right? But I realized now it actually was a book, because it was like, I don't know, 130 pages worth of, I don't know, sort of nice published looking little book. But I had no idea what I was really going to do with it. Okay. So I know that I can sit down and put my ideas on paper, but I need someone like you to say to me, Loretta, instead of wasting your time and another 6 months or 6 years or however long it is going to take you to write the next book that you don't really know what you're going to do with. I happened to do something with mine and then lost interest in that and then moved on. But quite frankly, I probably could have used it a whole lot better. So there are the basics. So you can learn to sit down and write, and you can learn how to write good copy, and you can learn how to use correct grammar, and you can learn how to string the sentences together. Okay, which means I probably could write a few pages of something, but I would need someone maybe a bit more specialized like you to direct me what kind of pages I need to write in what kind of sequence, so that I can do with that book so there are basic tools and techniques that we can all use and learn, or that I certainly know that we can all use and we can learn on ourselves. So I'm all about empowering yourself. So I teach a therapy called Jinshin Jitsu. It's a Japanese traditional healing art. It's a hands-on art, and it's got to do with energy that gets dammed and blocked in certain areas of the body called safety energy locks, and they have numbers, and the numbers have meaning. So if you have a pain and you know which safety energy lock is there, and you know what that safety energy lock means, that already is giving you a clue as to where it is that there might be some disconnect that you're not aware of. So things like that people can learn really easily. But the intricacies of that, if it's really complicated, then they might not know, in which case that my clients will say, Loretta, I've got X, Y, and Z. What do you think I should do? And because I understand the intricacies better than they do, I can possibly direct them to use the tool in a more effective way.
Yeah. And I guess working with you over time, or on and off, however your programs work, would be certainly useful to learn some more each time, and to be able to recognize things down the track in one's life, because life keeps going, doesn't it? And if we're not keep learning, then at some point in time, it just all falls to pieces, I guess.
Absolutely true. And it's a case of teaching people the tools, so that they've got a toolbox. So I always say, imagine you've got like a fanny pack, and in that fanny pack, you've got 5 tools. So when the pawpaw strikes the fan and you don't know which tool to use, that's when you ask me. So I train people in the tools, and then I teach people how to use the tools on their current problem. But the tools are universal. So, if you've got writer's block, there's some of I don't teach people how to access their creativity. That's not really my bag, right? But actually, if I think about it now, I know some Jinshin Jitsu that could probably help you with your writer's block, because the tools are universal.
Yeah, and that's great. I think a lot of things are universal in the health and wellness area. Only people we have come away from even just listening to one's own body. I think that's a big thing. What's my body telling me? Even just in a um, moment of pain of something, it's really hard for some people, like you said earlier. They just a quick fix kind of, just give me a painkiller or something like that, and let's just forget it. I've got to get on with it. That's all very well, but it's not really number one, a long-term solution in my opinion. And it certainly disguises what is going on from what you've already shared with us here. How do
And
you
also,
know?
sorry, it's difficult to listen when the signal is telling you something you don't want to hear. So, if you are a long distance runner and you get an ankle injury, and the ankle injury is saying you got to stop this running, or like, what are you? I'm not saying all long distance runners are running away from something, but it could be, what are you running away from? What are you not facing? All the runner wants to do is the ankle to get better and get back on the road. So it's difficult because some of the messages in terms of what it is that needs altering are not always popular. It's not sexy, unfortunately. But you know what? When we get really sick, it's extremely unsexy also.
Yes,
So,
yes.
you know.
And that's a big thing, that particularly, and you've mentioned you've had the COVID, struck you down with it. But you were looking for answers within it and within yourself. So people who don't know that, let's say people don't know that, but they are first ever, hearing about something, what would be a very first step that a person who doesn't really understand the mind-body connection yet, what's the one first thing they could do to get on that path?
The first thing you do when you have a sign or a symptom, whether it's the 10 kilograms extra that you want to lose, or the pain in your ankle, or COVID, is ask yourself, what are the signs and symptoms? What are they forcing you to do? And not, is it good or bad? Just what are they forcing you to do? So let's say when you have COVID, it might be forcing you to rest. Okay. And then, and now you want to be resting, right? Because you've got things to do. So the question is, how is the rest beneficial to you? So because in your mind, you don't see a benefit to being sick at all, which means that your sympathetic nervous system is trying to overcome the illness. So you're angry and you're frustrated because you're not well. All that does is increase your sympathetic nervous system reaction, and you need your parasympathetic to switch on so that you can actually get better. You need them both to be working. So when you ask yourself, what does this force me to do, be, or have? And then ask yourself, and how does that thing benefit me? In those benefits, you will find, if you are diligent at this, and this is hard in the beginning, but if you're diligent at it, you will find some of the underlying reasons why that has to happen. I'm going to give you a quick example. Take migraine headaches, for example, or migraines. I call them migraines,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's a good one. Yes.
You have a migraine headache and you're vomiting and you're in incredible pain. You have to take the painkillers. You have to go into a dark room. You have to close the curtains and you have to be quiet and still. And that sometimes lasts for 12 hours. And then maybe the next day you're also still washed out. So you still got to take it easy. So the question is, what does it force you to be, do, or have? Well, it forces you to be, do, or have. It forces you to completely isolate and not do anything except rest and try and get rid of the migraine. So what are you not doing? Well, you're not doing the homework with your kids. You're not cooking. You're not dealing with your relationship. You're not going to work. You're not dealing with your boss. You're not right? Those are all the things that you're not doing. What is it forcing you to do? It's forcing you to rest. So we go, yes, but forget the but. What is it forcing you to do? Rest. Okay. So where in your life is it possible that you never allow yourself to rest? Because, okay, we'll worry about why, but you never allow yourself to rest. So what if you could just build in 20 minutes of rest in every day? Then your body wouldn't have to build in 2 days of rest at the end of every month or every 6 weeks or however often you get the. Does that make sense? So what is it forcing you to do? That's the thing that you are not doing enough of. The why you're not doing enough of, that needs a little bit more work, but this is the place to start, because the minute you can see how your symptoms are serving you, your parasympathetic nervous system switched on, and that is rest, digest, and restore. That's the one that keeps your immune system active. So what happens is you take your frustration down a level, and you increase your parasympathetic activity. And as a consequence of that, you actually aid yourself in healing faster. So that's the place to start.
Wow. I mean, that is so super simple when you describe that. And, I could just see myself having a step 1, step 2, step 3 and start practicing that, because it would have an immense benefit after doing that consistently for a little while, I could imagine. It makes perfect sense to me. There might be people who, anything around natural, do-it-yourself type doesn't make sense. But I think we are designed to be well. I think overall we're not designed to be unwell. We're designed to be well and function at top speed, so to say.
And if you think about how badly most of us treat our bodies and just our beings in general, right?
Yeah.
We overstress and all that stuff, and your body still makes it to, on average, between 75 and 85 years. So imagine if you treated it well. So it's not about can you make it to 100. It's can you make it to 100 being happy and healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be better to be happy, healthy, and then leap into the grave than to do that slow, inexorable, suffering slide into the grave.
Yeah. You're describing that really well.
So that's quite frankly is I would prefer the first option. If I've got to go the second way, I can find the blessing in that too. But quite frankly, I prefer the first. And so that's really what I'm shooting for. Yeah. And that's what I want everyone to shoot for.
I'm absolutely fascinated by that. And I think, people have come more and more to the realization that there's more to being well than taking a tablet, running off to the pharmacy and a chemist and saying, give me something. And so to start with a simple step, what you've just described here, would be hugely beneficial and probably sought after. Just not everybody knows about that yet. We have to plug your group again, because that's a great place to be in. And I've seen a few of your lives. If I can't be there because of the time difference that we have, the recordings are there, and I think that's awesome. Because it makes so much sense to listen to it. And I think the more you can listen to it and the more you can, rewatch it as well, the easier it becomes to understand and want to take action. And also wanting to take action has a lot to do with, I've introduced you that you have a passion for this. Well, you certainly have that passion. It comes right through the screen here. So I think, joining that group Vitality Matters in Facebook is certainly very, very worthwhile for anyone who wants to explore the steps further and get instructions from you and just even ask questions, because that's one of the things, in a group can happen. Is that right? They can just ask questions?
Absolutely. And so I also always put out, what is, especially if there's a new member, do you have any particular challenges or areas of interest? Because I go live in my group for half an hour every week, minimal. So you know what, after you've done this for like 52 weeks, you start running out of ideas, because I keep on going, I've said that. Okay, so first of all, you can say the same thing more than once, because not everyone gets it the first time. I get that. But I'm always keen when someone gives me a topic. So the other day I was teaching a course, a program, and I was explaining something about a safety energy lock in Jinshinjutsu, and it was about, the meaning of the lock was justice, and it's already taken care of, it's part of the divine order. And I said, this is actually how karma works, like the Indian version of karma. And so someone put up their hand and said, can you do a live on karma? Now, you know what? I don't consider myself to be a spiritual guru, but when I thought about it, I thought, actually, I have some ideas about what I think happens with karma.
Yeah.
So some of the ideas that come to me are like, karma, what's it got to do with health? Well, actually, it's got a lot to do with health, because it's got to do with life.
And that's great. Now, I love that too, because you can teach on it. Somebody asks a question, but everybody gets the benefit from people's questions and from your teaching on it, and even if there are different opinions at times on something, it triggers, in my opinion, new thinking or more questions, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sometimes the questions trigger the next live. I've even had a live on questions because there were 3 or 4 questions. So then we just did a live on people's questions, because I always figure if one person is asking, there must be more people that are thinking the same thing. I've often had that. Someone asks a question and go, yeah, I always wanted to know that. So
that's right, because not everybody always speaks up, even in a group. You know, it can be, there's the quiet ones there too. So well, you've enlightened our listeners, our viewers, and you've certainly enlightened me with this, and I'm feeling really energized just from your passion coming through. Loretta, it's absolutely great talking to you. If I said to you, is there one thing, one message, or something that you'd like to share for people to know that is really important right now? Does something come to mind? I know I put you on the spot with that, but something comes to mind?
Oh, so 2 things, two quick ones. One is that we all have the same amount of time. There's only 24 hours in a day, right? And we all actually, I believe, get a certain energy capacity from God, the universe, whatever your belief system is. But time is finite and energy is not. So if we can learn how to work on our energy and our energy body, then we can have infinite lives within finite time periods.
Wow.
And health is full being health. Mental, emotional, and physical, and even spiritual health is essential for that.
And you can do a lot of that yourself, provided you take those very simple steps that you gave us earlier. So wind back, listen to it again, and write it down. Thank you, Loretta. That's been absolutely fascinating. Thanks for your time and sharing those tips with us here. And I'll put the link to your group below the video when we have it running there, so that people can go and join your group and find out more. Even just sit there quietly listening to what you have to say. That'll be great too.
Look. You can just lurk in the group. It's okay.
Yeah.
Lurkers and engagers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Loretta, for your time. Thank you. And the link will be below the video.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Sigrid.